My son's girlfriend mocked his size. So I helped him feel normal. Then things went too far. I just wanted to comfort him. But his eyes trembled, waiting, as if he needed me to save him from the deepest humiliation. I knew I was wrong, but at that moment, I didn't stop. Don't forget to like the video, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to stay updated on our latest stories. I never thought I'd say this out loud, but here I am, whispering it into the dark, hoping that telling the truth might ease the weight pressing on my chest. I crossed a line with someone I was supposed to protect, and it started so innocently. Or maybe that's what I tell myself to sleep at night. He came to me broken, humiliated, and I was already emotionally hollow long before that night. A woman doesn't end up doing what I did without cracks already running deep. I wasn't trying to seduce him. That wasn't the goal. He was hurting deeply. His girlfriend had laughed at him, not behind his back, to his face. And at 18, for a boy who just wanted to feel like a man, that kind of wound cuts all the way through. He came to me because he trusted me, because I was the only one in that house who ever really listened. His father was long gone, physically and emotionally, and I had spent the last 3 years trying to keep a family together that never really existed. So when he sat across from me that night, red-eyed, ashamed, and trembling, I didn't see danger. I saw a boy I'd practically raised, now silently begging me to make him feel whole again. I should have said no. I should have set a boundary. But the truth? I didn't want to. Not because of lust, but because for the first time in a very, very long time, someone looked at me like I mattered. And I was weak enough to reach for that feeling, no matter how wrong it was. So yeah, that's where it began. And it only got messier from there. My name's Marissa. I'm 39. I work in live in a quiet suburb just outside Seattle. And, until recently, I was someone's wife. The kind of wife who made dinner for a man who never came home on time. Who listened to her stepson talk about sports while his father scrolled through his phone. Who wore perfume that went unnoticed and lingerie that stayed in drawers for months. Tyler, my stepson, moved in with us 3 years ago after his mother passed. At first, it was awkward. He was 15, angry, guarded, and I was just the woman Dad married too soon. But over time, we settled into a rhythm. I made his lunch. He fixed my car stereo. We weren't close, not really, but he was polite, quiet, and when my husband eventually left, both emotionally, then physically, Tyler was the only one still around. We never talked much, just lived near each other. And that kind of silence? It gets heavy. Days blend. Nights feel colder. You stop waiting for someone to ask how you're doing. You stop expecting comfort. You just get through. Until someone looks at you and says, without words, I see you. And for me, that someone was Tyler. Tyler was never really mine, not in the way a mother claims her child. He called me Marissa, not Mom, and I never pushed for more than that. He was 15 when we met. Already taller than me, already closed off. His grief made him quiet, guarded. I respected that. After his mom died, he moved in like a ghost, always polite. Never rude, but never open. We coexisted. He went to school, I went to work. We shared space but not stories, not feelings, not memories. Sometimes I'd hear him laughing softly through his door, on a headset with his friends. Sometimes I'd catch a glimpse of him tossing his gym bag down after practice. Sweaty and distracted. Sometimes we'd pass in the hallway and offer a small nod, like two coworkers in the same office kitchen. But that was it. When his father and I started unraveling, fighting less, speaking even less, I expected Tyler to pull away too. But he didn't. He just stayed in his room more, ate less, smiled rarely. And I didn't blame him. Honestly, I admired his stillness, the way he seemed to survive on his own terms. But there were moments, small, flickering things, like when he refilled my coffee mug without being asked, or fixed the sink one weekend while I was out grocery shopping. He didn't say much, but maybe he was watching. Maybe he noticed more than I realized. And maybe, deep down, I wanted him to. It started with a knock on my bedroom door. Late, just past 11, I was already in bed, the light from my Kindle glowing softly in the dark. I assumed it was a noise complaint, maybe I left the dishwasher running. Or the dryer beeped too loud again. "Come in," I called, voice tired but calm. The door opened slowly. Tyler stood there, shoulders hunched in his hoodie, eyes low like he was bracing for something. "Hey," he said quietly. "Do you have a minute?" I sat up a little straighter. "Of course. What's going on?" He stepped inside, closing the door behind him. Didn't sit, just stood at the edge of the room like he wasn't sure if he belonged there. "I need to ask you something," he mumbled, "but it's kind of awkward." I nodded gently, patting the edge of the bed. "You can talk to me, Tyler, always." He hesitated, then sat, not beside me, just near. His knee bounced nervously. "It's about my girlfriend." I kept my face neutral. "She made fun of me," he whispered, said I was too big, that it freaked her out. I blinked. The words caught me off guard. "I didn't know that was something to be embarrassed about," I said carefully. He let out a bitter laugh. "Neither did I until she told her friends. Now everyone at school's got jokes." And then he looked at me. For the first time, not like a stepson, not like a boy. Just a person, wounded, searching. And something in that stare, I don't know, stuck to me. He didn't cry, not once. But his hands trembled as he spoke, fidgeting with the hem of his sleeve, avoiding my eyes like they held the power to shatter him. I wanted to say something wise, something that would make it all go away. But there are no perfect words for this kind of shame, especially not when it's about the one thing no man wants to be laughed at for. So I did the only thing I could think of. I reached out and placed my hand gently over his. His fingers flinched, then stilled. He didn't pull away. "It's not you," I said quietly. "It's her. Her immaturity, her cruelty. What she did says everything about her, and nothing about you." He finally looked up, his eyes glassy but dry. There was something in them that made my chest ache, a need that went beyond words. "Do you think I'm broken?" he asked. My heart cracked. "No," I whispered. "God, no, you're not broken, you're just hurting." Silence settled between us, but it wasn't empty, it was thick, humming, like the air before a summer storm. I became aware of how close we were sitting, the way our knees brushed, the warmth of his skin under my palm. And suddenly, I wasn't just a stepmother offering comfort. I was a woman being seen. By someone who shouldn't have been looking. My stomach flipped, heat rising behind my cheeks. I pulled my hand back slowly, trying to steady my breath. "I'm sorry," I said. "For what?" he asked, voice soft. I didn't answer. Because I wasn't sure if I was apologizing for touching him, or for wanting him to touch me back. The next morning, I told myself it didn't mean anything. He was vulnerable. I was comforting him. That's all it was. A fleeting moment of connection. An emotional short circuit in a dark house that's seen too many silences. But I kept replaying it in my head, his eyes, searching mine, his voice, soft and wounded, the warmth of his skin under my palm. How still he sat, how close we were, how neither of us moved for far too long. I spent the day trying to stay busy, folding laundry I didn't need to fold, organizing the pantry like it mattered, scrubbing the kitchen sink with more force than necessary. But no matter how much I scrubbed, I couldn't wash the thought of him away. When Tyler came home that evening, I felt it immediately, that quiet electricity between us. He barely said a word, just offered me a soft, "Hey," and went to his room. But even that brief exchange lingered longer than it should have. Later, I passed his room on the way to mine. The door was open. He was lying on his bed, one arm thrown over his forehead, the other resting on his stomach. His shirt had ridden up just enough to show a line of skin above his waistband. I looked too long. And hated myself for it. What was I doing? I wasn't a teenage girl. I wasn't starved for attention. I wasn't this. But maybe I was. Maybe years of being invisible, of giving and never receiving, had left something inside me hungry. Desperate, fragile in a way I never wanted to admit. And he saw it. Not the woman who kept the house running. Not the stepmom. Just me. A woman with cracks I'd tried to cover for too long. I stood there frozen, half in shadow, watching the rise and fall of his chest. I should have turned away. But I didn't. It happened 3 nights later. The house was quiet again. Rain tapped softly against the windows. And I was curled on the couch in my robe. A cup of chamomile tea resting in my hands. The kind of night that usually wrapped itself in stillness and passed without consequence. But then Tyler walked in. Hair damp from the shower. T-shirt clinging slightly to his chest. His usual hoodie missing. "Can't sleep?" I asked, voice low. He shook his head, then glanced at the tea. "Smells good." Without asking, he sat beside me, closer than usual, close enough for his knee to touch mine. We didn't speak. The room held a hum, quiet, steady, heavy. I felt the warmth of him, the subtle shift of his weight as he leaned forward to grab the remote. The way his thigh pressed into mine and didn't move. A movie played in the background, but neither of us watched it. I couldn't focus. My body was painfully aware of every inch of space between us, and how little of it remained. Then he spoke, barely a whisper. "You don't think I'm disgusting, right?" I turned, heart thudding. Of course not. He met my gaze, held it. "Would it be okay if could I lay my head here?" he asked, gesturing to my lap. I should have said no. I should have pulled away, created space, drawn the line I'd been carefully tiptoeing for days. But I didn't. He leaned in slowly, resting his head against me. His hair was still damp, his breath warm against my thigh. I brushed my fingers through his hair, gently, rhythmically. He sighed, a sound so soft, so broken, it made something inside me ache. And when he looked up at me, eyes full of longing and confusion, I didn't think. I just leaned down and kissed him. The next morning, Tyler avoided me. Not in a dramatic, storming out of the house kind of way. No, it was quiet, calculated, almost rehearsed. He didn't come out of his room until he knew I was already in the kitchen. He grabbed a granola bar, muttered a barely audible "thanks," and left without making eye contact. I stood by the sink, coffee in hand, staring at the door long after it closed behind him. Last night had happened. And now, he was retreating. I should have been relieved. It meant the boundary I'd broken hadn't completely shattered him, that maybe we could pretend it never happened. But the pit in my stomach said otherwise. He didn't text, didn't come home for dinner. When I knocked gently on his door that evening, I heard his voice, flat, distant, kinda tired, "Maybe tomorrow." And the worst part? I didn't blame him. He'd trusted me with something fragile. And I'd done the one thing I swore I never would. I let my own hunger swallow his. But what I didn't expect, what knocked the air out of me completely, was Evan. My 13-year-old son. That night, as I turned off the lights and moved toward my bedroom, I caught him standing in the hallway, just watching. He didn't say anything. Just looked at me with a face I couldn't read. Not angry, not sad, just distant, like he saw through me. "Hey, sweetheart," I said softly, "you okay?" He blinked, then shrugged. "Yeah, just going to bed." But his voice, it was off. Too even, too calm. And when he turned, I noticed the flicker in his eyes. Something cold, something knowing. That night, I couldn't sleep. Not because of what Tyler and I had done, but because I kept seeing Evan's face. What had he seen? How long had he been standing there? I wanted to believe it was just bad timing, that he hadn't heard anything, that maybe it was all in my head. But the next morning, he wouldn't look at me either. 2 boys, 2 silences. And suddenly, the walls of this house felt like they were listening. The house felt different now. Colder, not physically. Seattle's spring was finally softening, but emotionally. Everything was sharp and brittle. Like one wrong word would cause the whole place to splinter. Tyler barely existed within the walls. He'd wake early, leave before I was up, and return late. If we crossed paths, it was brief, muted, mechanical. He didn't sit at the table anymore. He ate in his room. He didn't leave dishes in the sink like he used to. He left nothing, no noise, no trace. And Evan? He stopped talking. At first, I thought it was just moodiness. Teenagers go quiet sometimes, but this was different. He used to hum while brushing his teeth, ramble about YouTube videos, ask if we could make pancakes on weekends. Now? Nothing. He answered in one-word replies. He stayed in his room, even when I cooked his favorites. And when I knocked, he'd say, "Doing homework," or, "Not hungry," with the kind of tone that made my skin crawl, not angry. Just, gone. I'd lost them both. And the worst part? I didn't deserve to get them back. There were moments, brief, jarring moments, when I'd see Evan staring at me, like he wanted to ask something, but couldn't, or maybe wouldn't. Maybe he already knew the answer, and it made him hate me in a quiet, secret way he couldn't name yet. One night, I stood outside his door, hand raised to knock. I waited there, heart pounding, for what felt like forever. But I didn't knock. Because what would I say? Sorry your mom became someone you can't trust? Sorry I blurred the lines between comfort and selfishness? Sorry I destroyed the only fragile version of family we had left? I turned away. And in that moment, I realized. This wasn't about one kiss, one touch, one mistake. This was about absence. Mine, theirs, ours. And the terrible, silent space growing between us. I don't expect forgiveness. Not from Tyler. Not from Evan. Not even from myself. What happened wasn't a mistake in the way we like to define mistakes, as accidents. It wasn't accidental. It was a series of choices. Small ones, quiet ones, but choices, all the same. And now, I live with the echo of them. I still make dinner, still fold laundry, still refill the soap dispenser in the bathroom like it matters. But this house? It feels hollow, like something cracked wide open and never closed again. Tyler doesn't speak to me. Evan barely sees me, and I no longer recognize the woman in the mirror. I look older, not just tired, not just sad, but like someone who knows what it feels like to be both desired and discarded. Both needed and feared. Both mother and mistake. Sometimes I sit at the edge of my bed, staring at the door, wondering if Tyler will ever walk through it again, not just physically, but emotionally, wondering if Evan will ever hum again while brushing his teeth. And sometimes, I wonder what would have happened if I had just pulled away, if I had chosen to stay lonely rather than feel wanted, just for one night. So I'm not asking for sympathy. But I am asking you this. If you were me, alone, empty, seen for the first time in years, by someone who shouldn't have looked at you that way, would you have stopped? Or would you have let it happen? Just like I did?